Coming up on today's show, I want to run through the playoff picture and some playoff odds for the Broncos in terms of maybe moving up in seeding, what you guys should be rooting for. We're going to cover it all on today's episode. But really quickly, help us reach 29,000 subscribers by the end of the day. We're 95 subs away from reaching this milestone, and then the big 3-0 is right in front of us. So join the channel if you have not already. 764 people have made the best decision of their life this month. Join that fun crowd. So let's look at the playoff picture here. As things stand right now, I don't get tired of looking at the playoff picture. It's just fun. Even though it doesn't change for much of the week, it's still fun to look at your team's logo in the wild card spot and not in the wild card spot. So the Broncos in a three-way tie with the Ravens and Chargers, but they lost to both teams head-to-head, so they are at the back of the pack. Now, we all are aware of the big Week 15 matchup and the playoff implications that come with it for the Broncos-Colts game. The Colts are hanging on by a thread. If they lose this game, they are pretty much out of it. But if the Broncos win this game, they move up to an 89% chance of making the playoffs, according to the New York Times playoff calculator. And if the Broncos lose this game, they drop down to 47%. Now, this is just based off running over 100,000 simulations, so it's not exact math, but it gives you guys a rough idea. Now, I did see a comment on our video yesterday in the preview for this game, so go watch that after this video if you haven't already, from Jason, who said 2016, the end of the season games had plenty of playoff implications. Last year versus New England had plenty of playoff implications. Come on, man. Now, Jason is saying this in response to me saying that this Broncos-Colts game is the biggest game for Denver in terms of playoff implications since the Super Bowl, which, by the way, some people heard that and thought I was saying that this game is bigger than this Super Bowl. No, of course not. Since, right? Post-Super Bowl. But Jason, I did some digging for you, and I went back to last year, the video I put out right before the Broncos-Patriots game, and the Broncos had 21% chance of making the playoffs going into that New England game Week 16. If they went 3-0 the rest of the way, it would only go up to 77%. So, respectfully, the numbers disagree. This is a bigger game than last year's Patriots game was. Now, I couldn't find any stats or numbers for the 2016 season. Remember, Denver kind of pooped on their leg at the end of there. They went 2-5 in the last 7 games of the season. But did anyone think Trevor Siemian and the Broncos were going anywhere that year or in the future with that quarterback? Not really. It was just a good, decent bridge option. Whereas I feel like from a long-term perspective, getting Bo Nix into the playoffs year one would be huge for his development. So I do believe this is the biggest game for the Broncos since the Super Bowl when it comes to actual playoff implications and not just emotional TV week 1 Russell Wilson first game in Seattle. Like, we're talking actual playoffs. This has got to be it. Now let's talk about what you guys should be rooting for. The short and easy response is root for the Broncos, root against the Ravens, Chargers, and Colts. But if you want to get a little bit further than that, let's just look over the Broncos schedule one more time. They got the Colts, then a short week against the Chargers on the road Thursday night, but that leads into some extra rest before Cincinnati in a game that is likely going to be flexed. For Week 17, the NFL put aside 5 matchups, and 3 of which will be flexed onto Saturday, and the Broncos-Bengals one is looking like it's going to be one of the top 3 matchups. Another one includes the Giants and Colts. Those 2 teams could be out of it at that point, so remove them, and then you've got a 3 out of 4 chance of getting into that Saturday game, and then you close out the year at home against Kansas City. So let's make it nice and simple. When it comes to this game right here, Denver, Indianapolis, win, and you are in-ish. Like we looked over earlier, 89% chance is not a 100% chance, but even if you were to lose the last 3 games of the season, you'd finish 9-8, and you'd still have a shot of making the playoffs, but that's if you go 0-3 the rest of the way. Now, what if you were to lose against the Indianapolis Colts? Okay, let's just go down this well for a moment. If you were to lose, you're going to need a little bit of help, and that's what we're going to unpack next on the show. But first, a quick shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time has this awesome feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. You see, what it does is it filters out the fluff. to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I love about Game Time is they offer the Game Time guarantee. Let's say you find tickets in the same section and row for less elsewhere. Well, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. So let's say Denver were to lose to the Colts on Sunday. Well, the Colts then have a pretty easy schedule in front of them. This is by far their toughest game. Titans, Giants, Jags. Bad, awful, really bad. And you can mix those up however you want. But if they were to lose to the Indianapolis Colts, well, let's move forward to Thursday, a couple of days later, and they go into that Chargers game with the following playoff odds. If they lose to Indy and beat the Chargers, they then have a 70% chance of making the playoffs. If they lose the next two games, Indianapolis and LAC, it falls all the way down to 18. So Sunday is a much bigger game, in my opinion, than the Chargers game is. Because lose to the Colts, and now you're on a short week on the road with your playoff balance or playoff chances hanging in the balance. I'd much rather have the Colts game be the team that dictates whether or not you go to the playoffs than losing to Indianapolis and putting all of your eggs in the we got to beat the Chargers basket. To me, it sounds like a lot easier to beat the Colts at home than beating the Chargers on the road on a short week. So take care of business on Sunday. Otherwise, this is what you're looking at right here. Now, what about moving up in seeding? Okay, let's play with our food for a second here. If you don't have time to play on the New York Times playoff probability calculator or the ESPN playoff machine, that's okay. I'm here for you. Let's talk about moving up in the AFC wildcard spots. Here is the remaining schedules for the Ravens and the Chargers. Both teams don't have gimmies, right? Ravens, sure, Giants, but then they got the Steelers, playoff team. Texans, playoff team. Browns, not a playoff team, but they just gave the Broncos a good run for their money. And then the Chargers, Buccaneers, playoff team. Broncos, playoff team. Patriots suck, Raiders suck. So, looking at those schedules here, and looking at Week 15 only, where Baltimore plays the Giants and the Chargers play the Buccaneers. If Denver wins and both the Ravens and the Chargers lose, which is not very likely because they're both favored in those games, the 5 seed for Denver has a 31% chance of happening. Okay? Let's say the Ravens don't lose to the Giants because that's too unrealistic for Tommy DeVito to knock off Lamar Jackson. If the Broncos win and the Ravens win, but the Buccaneers beat the Chargers, which is not a stretch at all, the 5 seed for Denver has a 17% chance of happening. Now, what about the 6 seed, okay? If the Broncos win this week and the Ravens win this week, but the Chargers lose to the Buccaneers, it's a 34% chance. Again, we are really far away from the end of the season, but if you do live for the nitty-grittiness of the playoff map and probability and calculator, this is for you. But take it one step further with me, and then I promise we'll land this plane. Let's just say that this right here happens. Broncos and the Ravens win, both expected, both favored, and the Chargers lose to the Buccaneers, which would not be a crazy wild upset. If that all happens, going into this game, if the Broncos beat the Chargers, they would have a 56% chance of moving up one spot in the playoff picture, finishing one spot up in the playoff picture as the 6th seed. So this is a much shorter and also realistic outcome. Broncos beat the Colts. Ravens beat the Giants. Chargers lose to the Buccaneers. And then Denver beats LA on Thursday Night Football. And now the 6th seed has a 56% chance of going to the Broncos, the odds-on favorite, which would be, I think we can all agree, a much better path for the Broncos to play maybe the Steelers in round 1 rather than playing the Bills or the Chiefs, because as things are shaping up right now, it's looking like Buffalo will be the 2 seed. The Chiefs are frauds this year, I'll say it. So I wouldn't be shocked if they slipped up twice, because Buffalo does have the tiebreaker. So same record, it goes to the Bills, but the Chiefs have found a way to continue to win games, even if it means their kicker banging in a chip shot field goal to win on Sunday night. But I would love to see the Broncos finish as the 6th seed, and that puts them on a collision course to play Russell Wilson in the playoffs, which I just think we could all agree, matchup-wise, a little bit better than playing Josh Allen, but entertainment-wise, could you imagine a playoff game? We didn't get to have Russ play the Broncos back in week 2, but what's better than that? Playing him in the playoffs. So this is the short term what we are rooting for. Broncos win. Don't spend your energy rooting on Tommy DeVito and the Giants. Maybe it happens. Daniel Jones was the first quarterback, and for a long time, the only NFC quarterback to beat the Ravens. Happened 2 years ago, but then when the Eagles went to Baltimore and beat them 2 weeks ago, they became the second NFC team to beat Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. So don't put too much stock in the Giants, because it looks like Drew Lock, by the way, is not going to play. He's injured, so it's Tommy DeVito time. So who knows what we're getting from Tommy Cutlets. But Broncos win, Ravens win, Chargers lose, go into Thursday night, beat LA, and all of a sudden you are on a good track to play Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road in the first round of the playoffs. Before we get on out of here, if you made it to the end of the video, shout out to you. Always appreciate the end of the video crew. Type DEN in the comment section. I mean, the last thing I do before I go to sleep is I just kind of scroll on the YouTube Studio app and peek at the comments, see all the awful things you guys are saying. So type DEN in the comment section below if you are still watching.